When you think of Brock Lesnar, you don't just think athlete, right? You think force of nature. But what if I told you that behind all that raw power and that animalistic intensity, there's a system, a very methodical approach to building a human weapon. So today, we're going to pull back the curtain and deconstruct the training philosophy of the Beast Incarnate.
And this right here, this is the key that unlocks everything. While so many people in the fitness world are training for aesthetics, for how they look, Lesnar trains for one thing and one thing only: absolute physical dominance. Everything we're about to talk about is built on this foundation. It's all about performance over presentation.
All right, so here's our game plan. We're going to start with his core philosophy. Then we'll dissect the three main pillars of his training: strength, power, and that brutal conditioning. And finally, we'll see how it all comes together to forge the complete weapon. Okay, let's dive in. First up, the Predator's philosophy. Because, before you even touch a weight, the mindset and the fuel have to be locked in. This is the bedrock that the entire system is built on.
This is really where you see two different worlds of fitness just split apart. On one side, you have aesthetic training, all about looking good. But Lesnar, he lives and breathes entirely on the other side. Everything is about function, raw strength, and explosive speed. His rule is simple: if an exercise doesn't make him a better predator, he just doesn't do it. Period. So to power a machine like that, you need an insane amount of fuel. We're talking over 4,000 calories every single day. For him, eating isn't about sitting down for a nice meal. No, it's a strategic refueling process. It's about repairing muscle and just keeping that high-output engine from burning out.
And the fuel itself, it's simple, brutally functional. It's all high-quality protein, complex carbs, and the nutrients he needs. But honestly, the most critical stuff might be right there at the bottom. For a system this intense, hydration and sleep aren't just good ideas, they are absolutely non-negotiable. They're treated with the same seriousness as any training session.
So all of this, the mindset, the fuel, it feeds into a really clear framework. You can pretty much understand his entire physical preparation through these three pillars: raw strength, explosive power, and combat conditioning. Let's break down that first one. All right, pillar 1, building gladiator strength. This is all about creating that foundational brute force that lets him physically overwhelm pretty much anyone who stands in his way. Yeah, the goal here is crystal clear. This isn't about chasing personal records in the gym just for the sake of it. Nope. It's about forging a base of power so immense that his strength itself becomes a tactical weapon before the fight even starts. And the tools for the job? They're the classics. The big, heavy, compound movements that build true functional strength. You won't find any shortcuts here. Just heavy, low-rep sets, often in that 5x5 style, a proven method for building raw power, not just puffy muscle. But look, having all that strength is great, but it's really just potential energy. Pillar 2 is all about turning that potential into, kinetic violence. It's about unleashing explosive power. This is where he teaches all that muscle to fire with terrifying speed. The whole point here is translation. It's about converting that static, gladiator strength into dynamic, athletic power. I mean, think of it this way. You can have the biggest engine in the world, but if you can't accelerate off the line, what good is it? This is the acceleration. The method for this is a combination of a couple key things. First, you've got Olympic lifts like power cleans. Those train the central nervous system to fire the entire body as one explosive unit. Then, you mix in plyometrics and drills like sled pushes, which apply that explosiveness in ways that directly mimic the movements of combat.
And now for the pillar that really separates the champions from the contenders, the fighter's grind. Because all the strength and power in the world fade if you don't have a gas tank. And this is where he builds his. And you gotta understand, this part is just as much about the mind as it is the body. It's about forging the mental toughness to stay dangerous deep in a fight, when every instinct and every signal of pain is just screaming at you to stop.
The conditioning tools he uses are primal and punishing. Tire flips, sledgehammer swings, battle ropes, hill sprints. These aren't isolated movements on a machine. They are raw, full-body efforts designed to build a relentless cardiovascular engine and an absolutely unbreakable will.
Okay, so we've got the philosophy, and we've got the 3 pillars. Now let's put it all together and see what it actually looks like to forge this human weapon week in and week out. And there it is. This weekly schedule really shows the system in action. You can see how each day is dedicated. 2 days for building that gladiator strength, followed by a day for that explosive power, and then that brutal conditioning day. It all leads up to a day of combat training where he applies all that physical work in practice. It's a perfect punishing loop.
Ultimately, this is the big takeaway. There is zero glamour here. It's not about trends or fancy equipment. It is a raw, punishing system engineered for one single, terrifying purpose: total physical dominance.
You know, at the end of the day, the physical routine is just one part of the equation. The true lesson from Lesnar's system is that unlocking your own potential, it requires embracing the hardest parts of the process, the grind, with an absolutely unbreakable mindset. Which kind of leaves us with this question. Lesnar forges his will with sleds and sledgehammers, but if you take this idea beyond the gym, what does it truly take to build that same kind of unbreakable mindset in your own challenges, in your own life? It's something to think about.